So my name is Eileen Kanaboy, and I served in Mali 1995 to 1997. I was a health volunteer, and I was in Kalagay, which was near Sibi. You know, one thing I remember, you've heard the phrase of people giving you the shirt off their backs. I remember getting a care package from home from my sister, and there was some candy in there, and there was only one lollipop. And I remember thinking, oh, I wish I could share some of these goodies, but because there's only one lollipop, you know, and there are always tons of kids outside of my mud hut, this isn't a good equation. And one day this little boy named Dowda was outside of my hut, and he was sitting out there on the mat, and I thought, gosh, he's all alone. This never happens. There's always a whole gaggle of kids that I play with and talk with and practice Bambara with. And because it was just the one, I went outside and I gave Dowda a lollipop and went back in the hut to do some things. And the next thing I knew, tons of voices, and I felt so bad that I didn't have something to give the others. And when I went outside, Dowda was walking around and giving every little kid a lick of the lollipop, and then they would start again and go back around and give a lick of the lollipop. That was such the nature of what I knew to be the, you know, it really personified to me just the generosity, and they shared everything and had so little, and I learned so much.
Hey, I'm Jason Burns. I was a Peace Corps volunteer in Mali from 2002 to 2004. I was a health education volunteer, and I served in the village of Fama, which is about 30K outside of a town called Sikasso.
Hi, my name is Kalita Quesada, and I was in Mali, and I was in the Sikasso region, about 30 kilometers out of the Sikasso village itself, in a small village called Ganjadugu. And they spoke mostly a different language of Senefo, which isn't written down at all or anything, so that was one of my more difficult issues, was just trying to communicate with them using Bambara mostly.
Did you ever participate in any of the ceremonies?
I got to, in what I could see. The women couldn't see many of the ceremonies. They did celebrate some of the Muslim stuff, but they had many animistic traditions that they still followed. And they actually did warn me the very first time I got there, when I still had like my Peace Corps translator come drop me off and stuff. And they warned me that during certain times I won't be able to go outside. And that is one of the, I guess, funner stories that I have is when that first ceremony came up, it was, let's see, I got there in July, so it probably was early fall, when I guess it was close to harvest time already, and so they were celebrating that. And I'd been there long enough to kind of see have a regular routine. I'd walk over to my host families around dusk and then have dinner with them and stuff. And my host mom, women in Mali don't really run for a lot of reasons, but they just don't really run. And my host mom comes running up the small trail that I usually would take to her house. And she was like, "We've got to get inside, we've got to get inside." And so we run to inside and we close the door, and there's a few other women in there, and we sit in complete darkness. And there was the center of the village, and there's a big tree there, and that's where they have a few special little huts where they keep some of the masks. And I never actually saw the masks. I wasn't really allowed to, so I respected them and didn't see anything. But you could hear from that, coming from that center of the village, this interesting, like, must have been some sort of homemade flute or something. And it was a very distinct sound, and that was the warning call that everybody is supposed to, all the women and children are supposed to go and hide, and I guess all the men go out there and dance. And then shortly after, you start hearing drumming. And we're sitting in pitch black, there's no light, nothing. And you just hear this drumming coming, and then you can hear them come down the road, they're getting closer, and there must be a whole group of them with different shakers, and they have all these different noisemakers, but mostly this crazy heavy drumming. And she was, after I was able to talk again, because we sat there pretty much in complete silence just listening to this party going by, she said that they're watering the spirits. I don't know how else you. So what they would do is they had sacred little spots. And we would go, as women, we'd take rice and we'd go throw rice in these little sacred spots for the spirits. And they would typically go, and I guess they would do their dances, and they'd cut a chicken and let it bleed there. And they typically would cook up the chicken and stuff, but only the men would be part of that. And then later that night, I was escorted back home because I couldn't go out by myself still. And at like some early hour in the morning, I heard them moving around again. So this lasted all night long. And they had a lot of different rituals for sure. Another really fun one was the fire dancers. And everybody was just kind of hanging out in their little houses and drinking tea. And then one guy came by and he was carrying long grass, and he had a few followers supplying his grass, and he just would keep the grass burning the entire time and do crazy dances. And I have no idea what he was actually singing because he was singing in Senefo, but that was another, they did that for the New Year's and for the rainy season, when the rainy season was about to start. So they had a lot of animistic traditions that were really interesting, but if I asked questions, they just would laugh and say that that's the way we've always done it. Like they just don't question things. And so I never got answers as to why or what it really was all about. But.
My name is Jen, and I did Peace Corps Mali from 2008 to 2010, and I was stationed near Kuchiala.
My name is Shelby Gale. I'm originally from Tennessee. I served in the Peace Corps from 2008 to 2010 in Mali, West Africa. My one biggest memory when I was a training Peace Corps volunteer was I'd gone to a village that was about 7K from my site. I rode my bike there one day, and my language wasn't that great. And I went over to this village and I saw this woman, and she had a tiny little baby. And I asked her how old the baby was, because I thought it was newborn, and it was actually about 6 months. And you know, I was asking her if she was eating. It was a very small baby. And long story short, one of my biggest passions in Peace Corps was doing murals and starting a mural program throughout Mali. And that was because of this woman. I didn't have the language to explain to her that she needed to be eating healthy food for the baby to get proper nutrition. And so I started a big mural campaign in Mali, and I have a website now on Facebook, so that mothers who aren't educated, they can see the murals. It's something that Peace Corps volunteers can leave behind. And that was the pride of my service, is just painting all over everything in Mali.
Can you say the link on Facebook so people could look it up?
Yeah, it's called Educate Through Art, and it's on Facebook.com. I believe it's Facebook.com/Educate Through Art, and it's mostly for Mali and West Africa. It's done in the local language. And you know, we're always looking to expand to other countries too. I think it's a great idea. I'm no artist myself. I got into it because I figured it's better to have something than nothing. And as long as it looks like what it's supposed to look like, and they can tell it's a person and tell it's a banana, you know, then it's fine.
My name is Renate Schulz. I was a Peace Corps volunteer in 1963 to 1965 in Nigeria. Nigeria 7, served at Ife Grammar School in Ife Esenihite, and as I mentioned, came back in 65 and went again last year in 2011 to Mali and got evacuated 2 weeks ago because of the political coup d'etat.
Mambeli gindi ndo mayo boy.